surveying the damage from above. Streets and houses engulfed in water in the worst flooding in half a century on Australia's east coast. But at least these homes are still standing. Others were swept away in the ferocity of swollen rivers. On what was meant to be their wedding day, the couple living in this house lost everything, including their pets. The Premier of the state of New South Wales warned there's more rain to come.
Regrettably, parts of the mid-north coast are experiencing a 1 in 100-year event. It's not going to be an easy week for us. Regrettably, this will be a prolonged event and none of us are out of the woods. Whilst the storm front is moving south, it's still going to be prolonged and the rain may not stop till Thursday or Friday.
In between the rain, homeowners sieve through the sodden remnants of their lives.
I've just cancelled my flood insurance to save $90 a month, right at the wrong time. I never thought this would happen. It's never ever happened here. Yeah, it's regularly happening down the road, but never here. Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Residents in a part of Sydney reported seeing a mini tornado.
We saw the tornado form and then we saw trees and plants and people's furniture flying in the air, rubbish bins, and then we screamed and just ran back inside. I've never been so scared in my life.
Thousands have been evacuated. Emergency services said they've already responded to 7,000 calls for help, but that number was growing exponentially. Many of the evacuations are around the Warragamba Dam. The last time it overspilled substantially was over 30 years ago. Australia has had a series of extreme weather events in recent years, most notably the bushfires in early last year that burnt uncontrollably through an area the size of England and killed 1 billion animals. Does climate change make these extreme weather events more likely?
Heat waves are easy to link to climate change. Wildfires and droughts are more complicated, but in general they're the sorts of things that you would expect more of as a result of warming. We've looked at all of the science on extreme weather attribution relating to floods specifically, and 3/5 of those have found a link between warming and the flood happening more likely or more severely.
But while the rain keeps falling and water keeps rising, any talk of future preventative measures are on hold. For now, all eyes are on this emergency and saving lives before the situation gets any worse.
Well, a little earlier I spoke to reporter Kylie Morris in Newcastle, New South Wales. I asked her what the mood was like.
I think an increasing sense of alarm now, Fatima. Certainly a few days ago, in some of the small towns right on the coast, we saw pretty intense rain and very localised flooding. But now it's just a sheer kind of geographical stretch of this storm front now. The fact that, from Port Macquarie in the north, which is a holiday town on the north coast of New South Wales, all the way down now to Sydney. And what we're hearing now, the latest from Sydney and the western suburbs of Sydney, are that there are major evacuations underway. People are being warned potentially not to try to go to work today, not to send their children to school, but to stay indoors.
Kylie, do we have a sense yet of the scale of the destruction?
Well, certainly in some tiny towns. I mean, there are towns. I'm in Newcastle. This is the Hunter River behind me, if you can see it in the dark. And the Hunter River is one of the rivers that's in flood. But as you go up, and there's a small town, Raymond Terrace, and there you virtually can't get out of your house. There's flooding certainly in the bottom levels of houses. People have been evacuated by boat. And so in very small towns, a lot of people are not only feeling the brunt of it, but they're also isolated and cut off without necessarily having any power, having any supplies. So really kind of dangerous, disturbing times for lots of families and people living up in more remote areas.
And what are we hearing from experts about how abnormal this is? Can it be linked to climate change?
That conversation is not happening here as yet. It doesn't come easily in Australia. Certainly we learned that in the bushfires. So the politicians aren't using that kind of language at this stage. I think, though, it's very hard to live through an event like this. Having been through the bushfires, I think people had thought, well, it's been a much wetter summer this year. So because of that, the memories of the bushfires had dimmed somewhat. And I think the fact that we're now getting, yet another kind of disaster, but this time in the form of floods, then it is a reminder, yes, that we are living in a time where climate is unpredictable.